Hello and welcome back to the making of the Quest for the Eye. In today's video I'm going to be making the terrain for the farming town of Oak Grove. Now as you can see I'm already got the Unity up here and I've already put in some of the bits and pieces that we're going to need, sort of like the add-ons and things like that. So today's pretty much just going to be sculpting and laying out the actual village more or less. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get on with it and kind of talk you through it a little bit. What I've actually done is recorded the video and then I've added this audio on top just so it makes it a little bit easier on myself, and then we can just go from there really. So later on I will split up these videos because otherwise they're going to be very long, so sit back and enjoy. So as you can see here I'm going to go down and create the actual terrain here. So this is just a very simple terrain and I'm going to go ahead and rename it just so I know what it is. So I'm just going to call it Oak Grove up here, and I'm going to make sure it's down here as well, called Oak Grove the same. And we'll get into sculpting it in a second. So with it highlighted now, I can zoom into it a little bit. Just getting it to the right size here, just so I can see what I'm doing really. And then I can go ahead and go into the sculpting now. So I'm just having a look at the brushes. But first I think I'm going to go ahead and paint it, just so it makes a bit more sense. So here you can see I'm going down, looking for a pretty decent texture. This is just going to be for the ground, so I'm going to start with grass. And I'm going to add a couple more textures to this, so I'm just going to change them over. So I'm looking at the textures, just seeing what would fit. So I go in here and I'm just going to change this dirt over. So I click on here and then I'm going to select and have a look for a fairly good texture in here. So I've chose this one just so it looks a bit better. And I'm going to do the same for the other layers, so that this is going to be sort of like the rock layer, so for the mountains and things. And I'm probably going to add some more in. So I'm just having a look in here, see what other textures I have. Just see if I can find what I like. So I think I'll just leave that as that maybe. And then I can go in here and adjust all the brush sizes and making sure that I've got all the ones I want selected. Just going to go ahead and start painting. So this just gives me a rough idea of where the mountains are going to go. Obviously I'm going to go ahead and sort of fill it in a little bit better. So I'm just going to outline it just here. So there we go. So roughly that sort of shape what we're looking at there. So into the actual sculpting now. So I'm going to choose this pretty decent brush. It looks pretty good. I'm going to adjust the strength and the size. So 500 is a bit too big, so I'm just going to bring it down a little bit, just to get a good size. So zoom in just so I can see what I'm actually doing. And I think that's going to look pretty good. Kind of here. Let's put it in this corner maybe. And I'm going to click a few times just to bring it up a little bit. So you can see it's raised it up quite nicely. So I will go ahead and I will continue going along, making the slight adjustments to the rotation of the brush so I can get a decent looking mountain range. Now obviously this will change a little bit as we're going through it, so we can just build it up a little bit. And we start build, as you can see I'm starting now going along the edge, and it's looking pretty good so far. So it's just a case of doing this right the way along and all the way around. Just doing it roughly here and there just so I can get a decent looking mountain range. And don't worry about the green parts. I will go ahead and change those. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting it more or less correct. Now I can just go ahead and that's looking pretty good so far. So where the gap is, I don't want anything now because that's where the sort of gates are going to go. So you can see it looks pretty good so far. So I just start and continue going round. Just making sure I've got all the corners selected and everything looking okay. Bit more rotation on the brush and just going to keep on going round. It's just a very fine tuning this is, and it doesn't take too long, but it's just a lot of fiddling around with this to make it look good. So I just continue. I'm more or less done now, but obviously it probably will change like I said. So I just want to get it nice. Because I just want some variety of the mountains, you see, because I've done it all kind of uniform. So I think that's looking pretty good so far. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring that right the way around. So it's looking pretty good. Bit more rotation here and there. It's just so I can get it so it looks fairly natural. Then I can kind of go over it a little bit and flesh it out a little bit. I'm probably going to end up raising these mountains a little bit too. So a bit more rotation. Just adding a little bit more height to some of these. There we go. I will go ahead and paint these as well, just so makes it look pretty cool. I think that looks alright. So let's go ahead and I'll paint the rocks. Now I know the texturing on the actual mountain doesn't look that great at the moment, but I will change that in a second. So I'm just going to go around and paint this just to give it a bit of texture. I'll probably do a little bit of detailing as well, sort of around the bottom, just so it gives that kind of full sense of like a gradient sort of thing. But I do know that that texture is way too big, so obviously I will be going in and changing that in a little bit. So let's just go, making sure I've got more or less all of it covered with the texture here. Again, it probably change a little bit as I go and add a little bit more detail. This is just a rough sort of outline of more or less what the mountains are going to look like. So there we go. So more or less done now. So that looks pretty cool. Just making sure that I've got all the little nooks and crannies and not missed any major bits. It looks okay. Little bits down here of green. And it doesn't really matter if I don't cover them, but I prefer to, simply because it's a lot easier on me. And then I know for definite that it hasn't been, you know, if a player accidentally stumbles up the mountain somehow, they don't see a random green patch. So So here I go, I'm just changing these size settings now. So just so it looks pretty good. Not quite happy with that yet, although it's getting there. I may change the texture entirely, but for now that'll just stay the way it is. Let's reduce it a little bit more, just see if I can play around with it. So 10 by 10 maybe. I may have to adjust the normal scale as well. 5 is looking pretty good. Smoothness just makes it shiny, so I don't really want it too shiny. Let's try normal. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So even close up it looks fairly decent, but again, it is rough, so I'll probably be changing it a little bit. Put it back up to 1010 and just have a little look. So that's looking okay. Just make sure I've got all the green bits. That's looking rather good, really. Okay, now let's just make sure I've got everything. Looks like I have. I do want to make it a little bit bigger in places. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to choose a slightly different brush, just for a little bit of variety. And I'm going to make these mountains a bit bigger. Again, I may add a little bit more detail to these as I go on. But this is just, like I keep saying, it's just to flesh it out a little bit. I mean, once they're painted, I can just keep adding to it like I'm doing. Obviously, if it does expand and get bigger, then I will need to retexture some of the bits, but that's easily done. Yeah, I definitely think I will be working a little bit more on these mountains, probably in the next video. But this is just rough. I keep telling myself it's a rough thing, but because I'm a perfectionist and I want it perfect, but it's looking okay so far. It's not too bad. Again, maybe a little bit of height here and there, but obviously we can do that. I'll just go in and paint a little bit more. So I want brush size, and now I'm just going to do a little quick, maybe a quick layout of where things are going to go. Of course, I am going to add more textures to this. So just those bits that I've missed. I'm just going to go ahead and add another layer. So I add this sort of mossy texture. I'm going to change it anyway. So that's not going to be moss anymore. Just going to look down here in the Explorer, see what I can find. Sort of looking for like a mossy, gravelly type texture. Just so it kind of blends in between the mountain and then the grass. So I've got quite a bit to go through, as you can see. But that rock moss looks pretty good. Or rock moss, maybe. Rocky dirt. Sand. Don't really want sand. Not in this bit anyway, that's for later, the sand. I think it'll be either that mossy dirt or the other moss rock thing. Yeah, the rocky moss looks about right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and go around the base of the mountains. just to give it that little bit of blend. You see, it kind of blends in rather well. So, I mean, I don't want the lines to be exactly straight on this. So I just make them a little bit wobbly. Just so it looks like it's a natural sort of rock formation that's kind of fallen down from the mountain. I mean, not that you're going to see much of it anyway, but the fact that I know it's there, I kind of need to make sure it's all done. Like I said, perfectionist here. So making sure this all... Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that. I just like the way it blends a little bit, which is good. So this is going to go right the way around. And obviously any bits that I've missed I can just go over again. But for now, that'll look okay. So I'm just going to bring that right the way down there. You can pass that a little bit there, you're not going to see anything anyway, because that's where a gate's going to go. So I may have to adjust the mounting there just a little bit, just to incorporate the gate a little bit better. But that's for another video. Because what I may do in the next one is pretty much just sort out getting the mountains looking really cool, and anything that I need to change, I can change in that video. And it will take obviously quite a while for me to get this all done, but hey, at least I'm starting making videos again and showing progress of what I'm doing. There's so much of it that I need to do, but I'm almost done with this, or this part anyway. There's more painting to come. I've also got to add quite a bit of detailing as well, here and there. So I think this is the last sort of little bit. Just go around that corner. And let's see how that looks. To make sure I've not got any massive green parts. No, don't look like it. Just double check everywhere. Guarantee I've done it. Right. I think a bit of snow on top of the mountains. Just to give it that sense of height. Though I may make these a little bit higher. Just to give it that more of aesthetic feel to it, really. And just make it look more naturalistic, I guess. It's looking pretty good so far. I'm fairly happy with that. Obviously there are green bits that I've missed, but I'm not too worried about them at the moment. Every fibre of my body's like, you must do it. Oh, I do hate being a perfectionist sometimes. So the snow's only going to go on sort of like the higher peaks. Because that, obviously that's where snow does fall, on the higher peaks, so... There's a bit of green there, so I'm just going to blend that in a little bit. See, I know there's that little corner in that bit in the corner. It's going to annoy me, isn't it? So maybe I'll go back to that. Just want to get around all these first. Yeah, I do find it annoying that it doesn't quite cover the whole thing, but it's probably a good thing in a way. So that way you don't get random blobs of snow somewhere where you don't want it really. But yeah, it's looking okay, I think. A little bit more here and there. You're not really going to see the back of the mountains, but like I said, I know it's there, so I need to go in and I need to change it. And I need to paint everything. There you go, that's looking better. Just have a look around, see where else needs it. Maybe raise this up a little bit more. Bring the brush size down just a little bit. Give it a little bit more of a height going on here. I'm just going to put, because there's quite a few like low places. So I want to just make them a little bit higher. Make it look more mountainous, less like a random slope. That's looking pretty good. Gonna probably change a little bit more when I go in and fine tune this, but for now I'm fairly happy, he says, looking around it with utter scrutiny. I've just got to play around and experiment with the brushes, I think, just to get that really good feel to it. But so far that's not looking too horrendous. I could always just put some like billboards up or something of mountains, and that would save a lot of render time, but I feel that's a little bit lazy. So besides, I think this looks a bit better. Again, adding just a little bit of snow here and there. Let's finally do the back of this. Give it a little bit of coverage. I don't want obviously the whole thing to be white at the top because I don't think that would look good. It just needs to be just in places. It's looking pretty good so far. Now, I do apologise if there are any sort of like pauses in the speech. It's just, I'm concentrating on doing this as well as talking, so I think that's looking okay. I'm quite happy with that so far. So what I'll do now is probably, let's flesh out where things are going to go. So just go put in top mode here. So top down because it's going to be easiest. So right the way through the centre, first off I'm going to put this lovely dirt path. Just gives me a rough idea of where the major path, road, or whatever you want to call it, is through. So there you go, because it kind of runs through the middle almost. And then up into this little section here. And I'm going to put draw a line around it. this is going to be where the chapel's going to go. And this line I'm doing now goes right the way around the edge. This is where the big defence walls are going to go, with the gates. Just so it roughly kind of fleshes out a little bit. So, also so I know where how much room I've got actually inside. So just going to go right the way around. Putting in the fences is going to be fun because I'm going to have to duplicate them like a million times. But you know what? Once they're in, they're in. I won't have to worry. So sort of around here maybe? Maybe here? Yeah, sort of here maybe. Sort of the house. Again, this is just rough. Another house. Maybe a pen here or a field. Maybe another house there and another field or pen here. This is probably going to completely change by the time I've actually done it. But it just shows you the fields and roughly what I'm kind of thinking of where stuff's going to go. Obviously, it'll look a lot better when I actually get the assets in. And probably one there as well. Maybe here. Yeah, that looks about right. Just to maybe get a little fields in. Obviously, some are going to be bigger than others, but I'm liking the kind of layout of that. That's looking pretty cool so far. Yeah, so I'm fairly happy overall. And obviously in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and actually probably start putting in the assets after I've dealt with some of the mountains. I'm probably not going to put the mountains off screen. But yeah, so the fence is definitely going and these bits and pieces. It's just a rough idea of where stuff's going to go. But I'm liking it so far. I mean, obviously, I'm going to probably end up changing the path texture, but for what it is, it's not too horrendous. So I'm quite happy. Yeah, and a little view from where the player would stand, and those mountains are looking okay. So yeah, so maybe a little bit here and there. Yeah, perhaps. It's looking okay. Well, thank you very much for watching, and thanks for bearing with me with this very long video. But overall, we'll get there. And I shall see you in the next one, whenever that comes out. Thanks again for watching. Goodbye.